Please like and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate the support from everybody. It really helps a lot and motivates me to continue making videos. Thanks. Now, with the rise of Chinese influencers branching out from their Chinese social media ecosystem to Western ones with more frequency and in formats that Westerners now enjoy and promote amongst themselves, more and more people are getting a glimpse into what life in China is like beyond the veil of propaganda from both sides. Today's questions and topics comes from one of my friends. He requested that I explain if there are actually ghost cities, what Chinese cities and towns are actually like, as well as what rural China is actually like. So let's get ghost cities out of the way first and foremost. Yes, they exist, and there are several reasons for this. The Chinese government, in the 10 years I lived there, demonstrated to me that they are building and developing the country at breakneck speed. They are endlessly and constantly building stuff, whether that is new apartments, infrastructure, or entirely new cities. Now let's be clear. This does not mean they are just raising everything natural to the ground and rolling out endless concrete and erecting structures. China actually preserves a lot of the nature within cities. So there are still trees and plants everywhere. I watched my first city, Kunshan, transform from a small city that had just about finished phasing out two-story housing to transitioning into apartment complexes. And apparently, according to the locals and foreigners that had been there before me, a few years before I arrived, it was still just farmland with no signs of a city. By the time I had arrived, it was already a city that eclipsed a lot of American cities in terms of infrastructure, amenities, etc. By the time I had left, they had already installed a complete metro system that connected to both Suzhou and Shanghai and completely transformed it into a city that would be one of the top-rated cities in America if you just picked it up and dropped it off in America. This is not to shame American cities or cities in any other country for that matter. This is just to demonstrate the rate at which China proceeds with development. Now, in my opinion, some of this development is misguided. In all the places I have been, there is far more housing than people to occupy said housing, which means renters have a field day and buyers have a nightmare. I mean, this is good for the average person that just needs to afford rent and make their way through life, but not so good for people that just want to own homes, even if they don't want to be landlords. I could rent a top-tier apartment in China for the rest of my entire life, or for the entirety of my life, from birth until death, and still not spend the amount of money buying it outright would cost, given the house market prices versus renters' market prices. In short, China seems to build more than it needs, which gives rise to ghost cities. They develop untouched land into new towns and cities. However, Chinese people do not move there, effectively leaving them abandoned. Even in my city, living in newer apartment complexes feels like inhabiting a ghost part of the city, because Chinese people prefer to live where communities have already established themselves. You might see this in your own country, where Chinatown just keeps expanding outward instead of new Chinatown areas being established and populated. You find that Chinese people prefer to buy older apartments in an already established community over a brand new apartment of similar cost. And that's because the brand new apartment does not have things like life necessity stores already set up around it. So just extrapolate this to a grander scale where people don't want to move to new cities because there aren't already established communities there. This leaves places built and ready for inhabitation, but empty because people don't want to be the first person to move there and set it up. Populating these ghost cities would require massive corporations to take the chance of moving their business there, to entice workers, which would snowball into populating the city. But in most cases, there is no reason to uproot already successful corporations to move to unpopulated places, and newer corporations are not willing to take the risk to be pioneers. We've already covered what Chinese cities are like, more or less, but let's just summarize. They are incredibly organized, incredibly modern, and have remarkable infrastructure. China might have a lot of other problems within their country and society, but their cities are not one of them. I don't think it's a stretch to say that any other country worldwide would be happy to have that level of city within their nation, but obviously just altered to suit their culture and needs. Now, the way China operates and the size and scale of both the country and population means that small towns often become small cities than just outright cities by Western standards, given their rapid expansion. The only places that truly remain towns are those that have no reason to keep expanding or cannot keep expanding. Like, for example, the ancient water towns that simply do not have the real estate to continue expanding outward. So, basically, the two types of cities or residential areas within society are Chinese cities and rural Chinese villages, with a smattering of what we would call towns in the mid-range that inevitably creep towards becoming cities in a lot of cases. Now, what we would truly call towns or villages by Western standards were one of the most interesting aspects of my time in China. There was a time when my foreign friend group in China was absolutely massive, and many people had Chinese partners. And some of the wives and girlfriends would organize massive trips where we would all hop on a bus, head out to some truly remote part of China, stay in a village, climb a mountain to an even smaller village, and just see what life in rural China was really like. Spoiler alert, it is mind-boggling. One Chinese New Year, we went to one of these remote places and stayed one night in a village at the foot of a mountain. Now, this was a village that had clearly stopped being maintained, much less developed. Many of the houses were collapsing and people were still living in them. The school was half collapsed but still holding classes, and the place generally just seemed like a small village that stopped growing, but time had continued to force it to deteriorate. But what really blew my mind was when the children and grandchildren of the families still living in the village started coming back into the village from the cities they lived and worked in for the new year. It is custom in China that all Chinese people return to their hometown for major Chinese holidays, especially Chinese New Year. This meant we were around the campfire, grilling a goat, and we were just watching all manner of expensive European car and supercar come rolling into the village from the nearby cities. And I mean every manner of expensive car you can imagine. Top class Mercedes, BMWs, Audis. I even saw some ridiculous cars like a McLaren, a Lamborghini. And this was made possible by the extremely wealthy children and grandchildren that had gone off to the cities and made lives and careers there. And they were just coming back to visit Grandpa and Grandma for the New Year. Now, the average Westerner might ask, why don't the children and grandchildren just move the grandparents into the city and give them better housing and a better life than run-down, collapsing buildings? They can clearly afford it, can't they? In short, they can afford it. But Grandpa and Grandma don't want to leave their hometown, even though it is collapsing. Now, bear in mind, this village still had indoor plumbing and reliable electricity. But when we climbed that mountain to the village the next morning, a village that is only accessible by foot, now that was something else. These ladies and gentlemen were basically entirely self-sufficient. They raised animals and planted crops up there in the mountain, and there was only one family within the village up there that had indoor plumbing and a working shower and indoor toilet. And they charged visitors and I guess other residents to use those facilities. So if you weren't willing or able to pay for the use of those facilities, there was a communal toilet within the village confines that was essentially just a pit. Yet, for some reason, they had a flat screen on one of the walls in the middle of the village where everybody had access to it. And they were actually showing some CCTV channels. It was truly mind-boggling. Although it was a hell of a trip, I must admit. I enjoyed it, I learned a lot, and I had a great time both with the locals and my friends up there. But it truly confused the hell out of me. With that being said, that's enough. Run the music.
Yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah. Please tell me all the bad, never good, fill my head full of every single doubt, yeah. Please say any negative thoughts, I pop off when I hear people say I cannot. I get off to the thought of proving everyone wrong, I won't stop to the top, so you better back off and get lost. I'ma stay loud, stay proud, never running out, never heading south. I'll be spreading out, call it word of mouth, can't put me down, I'll be getting loud. You can have it douse, not what I'm about, have your fucking cloud. It be raining now, I keep making sound, go another round, bitch I'm legend bound, can't stop me now.
You don't wanna fuck with me. A slow burn like a disease. Just tell me that I can and I'll show you things that you couldn't believe. Just tell me that I can. Just tell me that I can. Just tell me that I can. Just tell me that I can.
Cause I just wanna hear it out your mouth, yeah. Give me fuel, it's a tool that I use to go ahead and run my fucking mouth, yeah. I take shots, I take loss, I make shots, I miss lots. That's how you get big box, you get yachts, you swing lots and pop off a big shot. I ain't done chasing, got big dreams, bigger things, impatient. Who's at the top think they need replacement? Who's at the top think I'm gonna erase it? Face it, I don't give up quick, I don't give up shit, I won't give up this. Cause I know that I want it, know that I'm on it, I'll make it, I promise.
You don't wanna fuck with me. A slow burn